Welcome to today's class of how do organisms reproduce. In our previous classes, we have come to know the generalized idea about why do organisms reproduce. Then we have talked about the difference between the asexual and sexual type of reproduction. Then we have discussed about modes of reproduction, in which we started with asexual reproduction and we had completed last day with the tissue culture being the last point. It's not discussed so vividly in your NCERT, but since it is mentioned, so it is no less important. So you have to read it, what do you mean by a tissue culture practice, and since it is also a single parent's meristematic tissue being used for the process of propagating plants, so we will be including it under the artificial mode of propagation in case of the plants. Okay, so today we are going to read the next section of our chapter, how do organisms reproduce, in which we are going to read about sexual reproduction. Now, sexual reproduction, if you talk about, we know that here two parents are involved, gametes are involved, isn't it? And DNA copying is done prior to the formation of the gamete, because if the DNA copying is not done, then the information which is in the parent cell cannot be transmitted to the offsprings. And if you talk about what is the importance of sexual reproduction in an organism's life, well, sexual reproduction is the easiest way of bringing about variation in an organism. Because when two parents are involved and gamete cells are produced during the time of DNA replication, definitely there will be formation of variation, and these variation, if are stable, will be continued in the next generations, and this will be helping the organisms for a better survival. Now, these gametes since are special in the sense that they have half the number of chromosomes, because when the two gametes they fuse or they fertilize with each other to form the zygote, then the constant chromosome number of an organism is maintained. So there must be some special cells in the body, in some special organs, of course, which is different from that of the other body cells. Now, these are called as your reproductive cells, and from there the gametes are produced, which are having half the number of chromosomes in case of sexual reproduction, and when they fuse, then they complete the chromosome number by becoming diploid organism. Every organism starts its journey with a single cell, isn't it, a zygote, and now this zygote, when it multiplies, it forms a mass of cell. Then from there the tissue differentiation starts, and also it is there, and then when it is being decided that which cells of the body or which lineage of cells will be there in the reproductive organs, that will be deciding the formation of the gametes. Now, that is what is associated with this term of sexual reproduction. So first you have to understand what is sexual reproduction and why it is essential for an organism. The reason is because it will develop more variations, but if the variation is too high, in that case it may sometimes not be suitable also, because the cell organelles which are present in the cell may not be competent enough to have this kind of variations, and they won't be able to lead a normal life of a cell growth and cell cycle and all those things. So variations should be less and variations should be stable, so that it keeps a pace with the cellular materials or the cellular apparatus, and the organism can withstand the adverse environmental conditions which happens, and it can better suit itself. Now, in the sexual reproduction in your book, two things have been dealt. One is in plants and another one is in animals. So we are going to read today is about plants. So in case of plants, if we see, the sexual reproduction actually happens in the flower. So flower is a reproductive part of a plant. Okay, so flower is a reproductive part of the plant. Let us first understand the flower's parts, and then we will be understanding that how does the process of sexual reproduction takes place in the flower. Okay, so see this one. This is a typical flower which is having the following parts. Now, this is the stalk of the flower. This is called the pedicel. Okay. After that, you can see this is a cup-shaped structure. This is called a thalamus. It may be receptacle, maybe disc-shaped, as we see in case of sunflower. But most of the flowers, it is a kind of dome-shaped or a inverse dome or a cup-shaped structure. Then the first hole of the flower, this green color things which I have drawn here, the first hole of the flower, this one is called as your calyx. Okay, calyx is not taking part in the process of the mating up of the gametes. So calyx function is to protect the internal parts of the flower. Okay, next is the corolla, or this is also known as your petals. Now this corolla or the petals, which is made in red here, this is the attractive part of the flower, which will be attracting the pollinators for the process of pollination. Okay, we will be reading about what is pollination and all those things just after this. So corolla is again not essential for the process of mating up of two gametes, but since it is attractive, it is bringing the insects or bringing the animals or bringing the birds for the process of pollination. That is why in that case it is helpful for the process of sexual reproduction, but or else it does not takes part in the sexual reproduction. So it is also your non-essential whole of a flower. So second whole is your corolla or petals, which is the non-essential whole of the flower. After this, the third whole of the flower, that is this blue color thing which I have drawn on the two sides of the flower. Now this one is called as your male part of the flower. Now what is this male part of the flower? It is also known as your stamen. Okay, so it is known as your stamen. It consists of two parts. What are these parts? This one is anther and another one is your filament. This long tube like structure, this is called the filament. So anther and filament togetherly, these two will be making the male part of the flower, which is called the stamen or androecium. Next is this of course will be forming the pollen or the male gamete, which takes part in the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So this is the essential whole of the flower. The third one, that is this stamen, which comprises of anther and filament. This is the essential whole of the flower because it produces the male gamete. Next is the last or the final or the fourth whole of the flower. Now this is the structure. This is called as the female part of the flower and its name is carpel, or it is also known as your pistil. It is also known as your gynoecium. So carpel, pistil or gynoecium, whichever name is suitable for you, you can memorize that name. Okay, it has three parts. What are the parts? This portion of the female part is known as your stigma. This is known as your stigma. Then you can see this long neck like structure. Now this long neck like structure is known as your style. Okay, and in the bottom you can see this flask shaped structure. Now this flask shaped structure is known as your ovary. So the female part of the flower comprises of three portions: stigma, style, and this is ovary. Now inside the ovary also many things are there. Now inside the ovary, what things? This is called the embryo sac. Okay, this is called the embryo sac. Inside this is various cells. The most important of it is the basal central cell. So basal central cell, you can see here three cells I have drawn. Okay, let us enlarge it and then it will be easier for you to understand. Okay, in the embryo sac at the base we have three cells. The central one is known as your egg cell, okay, which is the female gamete. This is the female gamete which will be fertilized by the pollen grain, that is the male gamete. And now in the center of the embryo sac, you can see in the center two cells are there. Now these two cells are called the polar nuclei. All the cells inside the embryo sac are haploid because they are formed as a result of a division which is called the meiosis division. Now next what will happen? In the next phase, what will happen is that in the stigma of this female flower, when the pollen grain will fall. How will it fall? It will be helped by some agents. What are the agents? Agents can be wind, agents can be insect, agents can be small animals like birds. It can be wind, it can be water, anything. So when the pollen grain will fall into the stigma of the same kind of flower, then it will be germinating. So when it will germinate, it will develop a tube. You can see this blue color tube which is growing through this style. Now this blue color tube is called the pollen tube. You can see here pollen tube. It grows and it goes through the ovary and comes to the bottom of this ovary. Now this end where it enters into the ovary, this end is called the micropylar end. Now here what happens is that the male gamete, that is the male nuclei, is released here. And it is released where? It is released in the egg cell. In the center there was egg cell, no? So in the egg cell, the one male gamete will come and it will fertilize with the egg cell, and another male gamete will come and it will fertilize with the central two polar nuclei. So here you see two events are taking place. What are the two events? One, fertilization is taking place with the egg cell which is present in the base of the embryo sac. Since here male and female gamete are meeting, so it is a kind of fertilization. Here also in the center, these two are the female nuclei. With this, one more male nuclei is coming and fusing. So here also fusion between male and female nuclei is happening. So this is also fertilization, because fertilization means what? Fusion between male and female gamete, isn't it? So when it is happening, so here also fertilization, here also fertilization. Since 2 times fertilization is taking place, so such phenomenon in case of your angiospermic plants is known as your double fertilization. And in the center, you see, in the center how many cells are there? 1, 2, 3, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 1 male nuclei and 2 female nuclei. Now these 3 are cells. Now these 3 cells are fusing with each other, so that is why it is called triple fusion. Okay, it is called what? It is called triple fusion. So in the center of the embryo sac, triple fusion is happening, and in the embryo sac 2 times fertilization is happening, one with the basal egg cell and one with the central 2 polar nuclei. That is why it is called double fertilization. Now what will happen next after the process of fertilization? After the process of fertilization, this calyx, it withers away. Okay, these petals, their function is finished, so they also wither away. Alright, next is anther, the pollens are formed. So pollens also, after getting transferred, they also have the lifespan, isn't it? So they also get damaged or destroyed. Now the stigma and style, they are also lost. What is remaining is this ovary, and inside this ovary the embryo sac. Okay, now the developmental stages which takes place here now is the center of attraction for the next part of the chapter. Now ovary will transform into fruits. Most of the plants, the fruit which we are eating, it is actually the ovary, fleshy ovary which we are eating. Okay, some cases there are some plants in which the ovary is not taking part in the formation of fruit. Okay, so ovary is not taking the part in the formation of fruit, then what is taking part? This thalamus sometimes develops, proliferates, and it encircles the embryo sac. It becomes fleshy, it becomes juicy, and it encircles the your embryo sac, and then it takes part in the formation of fruit. So since here thalamus is taking part in the formation of fruit, so this is not a true fruit. Okay, so what is it called? It is called a false fruit. But when the fruit is formed from the ovary, then that type of fruit is known as your true fruit. So fruit, whether it is formed from ovary or not, is of 2 types. Okay, when it is formed from the ovary, it is called true fruit. Okay, like mango is a true fruit, and when it is not formed from the ovary, it is formed from some other part. It is thalamus, sometimes calyx, also they become juicy leaves, and they also encircle the embryo sac to form the fruit. So in that case, they are called the false fruits. Fine. Okay, now inside this embryo sac, the basal egg cell which was fertilized by the male gamete, it forms the embryo. Okay, it forms the embryo, and the central 3 cells which fused, that is the 2 polar nuclei and one that is your male gamete, they form the endosperm. Now what is endosperm? Endosperm is a nutritive tissue which will be surrounding this egg cell. That is the egg cell transformed into embryo. So embryo also needs some food, isn't it? Because it is in the period of rest. Soon after the formation of seed, the seed does not germinate, isn't it? Seeds take some rest. So while it is resting, then also it has to survive. It has to do the process of the other metabolic process which will make it alive. So one such metabolic process is respiration, isn't it? So how will it get the food? Because food is to be oxidized to give it energy. So that food will be produced or will be supplied by the endosperm tissues which are formed as a result of triple fusion from the central 3 cells, 2 female cell and 1 male gamete which will fertilize with it. Okay, now after that what happens is that the seed formation takes place. Now this is a typical dicot seed. Okay, this is a gram seed. okay, black gram we call it. This is a typical dicot seed. And dicot, why we call it? Because if you will be pressing the seed slightly, you will find that it has two equal halves. Okay, it is having two equal halves. There is one more video about the dicot seed. You can see in that how just by pressing the seed which is soaked into the water, easily the parts of the seeds we can display and we can see it. So in this, what we will be doing is that if we soak the seed overnight in water for few days, then it starts germinating. How does it starts germinating? It needs some factors for germination. What are these factors? It needs water, it needs right kind of temperature, and it needs sunlight. Okay, so all these three things are required for the plant seed to germinate. So when the seed gets all these things, you see here the two depressions which are made. These two depressions shows the point of contact of this seed joined with that of, you know, inside the embryo sac with the help of the tissues which is called placenta to the wall of the embryo sac it was attached. So from there, this is a micropylar region, okay, actually, and one is a hilum, okay, so through which the water can enter, and when the water enters, the seed coat which is surrounding the seed, it becomes soft. So enzymatic action becomes, and as a result the embryo starts, you know, activating, and the more tissue differentiation starts, and gradually what happens is that the embryo now develops or differentiates into the upper plumule part and the lower radical part. Now first the plumule does not grow, first the radical grows. So radical, when it grows, the radical is the first thing to come out of a germinating seed. It will be growing always towards the ground, showing positive geotropism, and after few more days you will find a small slight greenish color thing appearing from the top, and that is called the plumule, which is the future shoot of the plant. Okay, and this is called the embryonal axis. These two are the cotyledons, which has the endosperm in it. Now this, in case of dicot seeds, this endosperm which is present in the cotyledons is totally used up by the developing embryo. But in case of monocots, monocots means which has one cotyledon, like wheat, like maize. So in them the endosperm is localized in one part of the seed. It is not dispersed. Like in dicot seeds, it is dispersed throughout and it is utilized. It is a developing embryo utilizes all the, you know, nutritive tissue, that is endospermic tissue, for its growth and development. But in case of monocots, it is not completely utilized. So endosperm still persists in the seed. That is why they are called the endospermic seeds, and the dicots are called as your non-endospermic seeds. But exceptions are there. Always in case of dicot seeds also endospermic seeds are there, like castor, and non-endospermic seeds are there in case of your monocots also. But we are not going for the exceptions, we are going for the generalized rule. In case of monocots, the seeds are endospermic. In case of dicots, the seeds are non-endospermic. So seed, when it gets the right kind of temperature, water and sunlight, it germinates. So this is how the that is your sexual reproduction takes place in case of the flowering plants. And we have read about the parts of the flowering plants, and after the fertilization what events takes place, which part transforms into fruit, which transforms into seeds. Here the ovule transforms into seed, and ovule is present where? Inside the ovary, isn't it? And how, what are the parts of seed, dicot seed? Then how does the seed germinates? What are the conditions required for the germination? And now the seed is ready for the next generation. That means if we sow them, if we give them the right condition, they will germinate into a new plant, showing the characteristic features of the parents from which it has derived the characteristics.